Hi guys, and welcome back to another Show on the Buffalo video. Hope you've all been well. Now today we are doing another video to participate in our budget series set of decks that we are creating that are built to allow our newest players and even some of the old players build decks that cost a minimal amount of money, next to nothing, and still be able to play in a competitive, viable format. So today we are covering the letter G, and for the letter G we have our newest guy on the block, Greedent, from the from the Shield and Sword era, and we also have another one that has a G to begin with, although it is primarily just its form in Galarian Cursor. Now, the purpose of this deck is Greedent's attack, Smack and Run, which is a new hit and run attack that when you perform the attack, it puts this Pokemon and all cards attached into it into your hand, and then you run away to things like Lily's Pokédoll to prevent your opponents taking prizes, and run away into Galarian Cursor, which has an ability, Perish Body, where if this Pokemon is in the active spot and knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, flip a coin. If heads, the attacking Pokemon is knocked out. So the idea is that because the hit and run attack only does 100 damage, we sometimes have to promote Cursor to sort of mitigate the low damage output to be able to still take a lot of big prizes just via his ability. We also have Boss's Orders in this deck to, if my opponent retreats a Pokemon to stop it from being knocked out, we can then Boss's Orders it in to potentially finish it off again with Smack and Run for an additional attack, and then hopefully run away into a Galarian Cursor so that when they attack with a fresh Pokemon, hopefully we get a knockout on a fresh Pokemon as opposed to one that we have already damaged. We have maxed out on consistency cards in this deck, so we have 4 Evolution Incense, 4 Pokemon Communication, and 4 Quick Ball. So that allows us to search our Pokemon as hastily as possible, or is the aim. And we even have included a 2-2 line of the Minccino-Cinccino line that has the ability Make Do, that allows us to draw more cards every turn by discarding one. So it's very reminiscent of the Zoroark's trade ability, which I can occasionally slip up and tend to call it trade. So that's the whole purpose of this deck. We have maxed out on as many draw supporters that we have space for, so we've put 10 in here, which is 2 Erica's Hospitality, 4 Marnie, and 4 Research. So hopefully they'll help us, obviously as we're not using Oricorio, help us acquire the cards that we need. 2 Forms of Retreat in 1 Air Balloon and 1 U-Turn board should always be enough, but we shall see. And we only have 6 energy, so the ability to attack every turn should be quite high, because once we start attacking, unless they Marnie us, we will always have the attack ready in hand next turn. And that's also why we've included the Cinccino and many draw supports. So that's all there is for this deck, and I'll be right back to show you some gameplay. So we are here with our first match, and we are actually against Enjoy Friends, which for those of you who don't know is an extremely good player. His name is Andrew Mahone. He is the YouTube channel leader of the YouTube channel Tricky Jim. So this will potentially be an extreme struggle because he is a very good player and a big fan of him myself, to be honest. I do watch a lot of his videos. We do not have a great start, however, and it is possible that my opponent will be able to knock me out turn 1. So this isn't looking good, and he also has the move Radiating Heat, so he'll be able to get rid of this anyway. But with any luck, he may have to Marnie if he doesn't even have a Fire Energy in hand, which is very unlikely in a Centiskorch deck, as they do tend to have a lot of energy. And there's 2 straight away off the Welder, and we will see a Radiating Heat. So we want to evolve into Galarian Cursor, because we could force a tie if he doesn't happen to find another Pokemon here, which is most likely now that I've Marnied him, but we do also need to get ourselves into the game, which is proving quite the struggle, apparently. So we'll put these down and we'll just pass turn. And with any luck, he won't have the Centiskorp's VMAX and a bot onto our benched Galarian Cursor. If he does, we are immediately going to promote our Galarian Cursor anyway. We want to leave it in the active for as long as possible, so our opponent does not get to set up. So here is the potential VMAX. He may even get a Dedenne Crobat here. We'll have to wait and see. Dedenne and Crobat would be the most optimal play for him, in my opinion. Just to get himself into the game, because if he doesn't take a knockout on the benched Corsola, then he will be very behind. So we'll see exactly what happens here. So this is going to get him the VMAX, and he's looking for a boss's orders off the Crobat, I would imagine. Just emptying his hand to maximise the draw power from Crobat, and here he's looking for boss's orders and the VMAX. Hopefully my opponent will bench an extra Pokemon here, because I would indeed very much like to maximise the potential of getting a high-powered Erica's Hospitality off, but we shall see. And finally, to see a result, do we get a heads from Perish Body? We get a tails, which is very unfortunate. So we'll promote Lily's Pokédoll. And we will Evolution Incense into another Galarian Cursor. And we will play yet another Marnie. So this is giving my opponent a lot of time to set up, but we do also need to set up ourselves, which is the problem. And we have yet another Greedent. And we're not going to attach energy just yet. We're just going to pass here, because we have already lost one energy, and losing any more when we only play 6 would be very detrimental to our game plan. So we're going to force up Galarian Cursor once again, because we do need as much time as possible to be able to set up. Turns out that was the wrong play with the Evolution Incense top deck. But we shall grab another Corsola as we need more ability, more time to set up, sorry. So the best option here would just be to put down some of these. I don't know if my opponent's going to have a boss's orders in hand, but if he does, then that will suck. But we do need to Intrepid Sword, because we do need to set up. So we find some things to set up finally. And we do have the ability to start attacking next turn if he does not want to hit into this. He may even retreat here and take the knockout with the High Heat Blast from Volcanion, but I feel like we're going to see another either Crobat or Dedenne to find my opponent the boss's orders so that they can take a knockout on Mazation. So it doesn't look like we're going to win this game, but we had an extremely slow start, which is very unusual for a deck with this many Pokemon search outs and so many draw supporters, but these things happen. So maybe we're going to see the Eldegoss here for a boss's orders, which we do not. We see the Giratina, or maybe he's got another Quick Ball in hand to Quick Ball away the Giratina, which we see here for another Crobat, I was thinking, but that is not the case. It's just thinning, looking for the boss, doesn't find it. So My opponent either has to retreat here or risk being knocked out by our ability. So do we finally get a heads? We do, and we get a full knockout on a fresh 3 prize Pokemon. And we will promote the Lily's Pokédoll and flip it back into the deck, because we do find ourselves another Galarian Cursor. So we're going to flip all of these back into the deck. And we'll promote Squobit. We'll put this down, Pokecom away the Cinccino for the Greedent, which is there. We have prized 1. So at least we have an attack this turn. And we'll put this here. And we will simply Marnie. We want to keep all our draw supporters for later in the game when they start to Marnie and or reset Stampers ourselves. We do also find another Squobit, which is necessary to carry on the attacking train. And we will see our first Smack and Run, where we will retreat directly into the Galarian Cursor. We do have an Ordinary Rod somewhere, so that will allow us to get back a Galarian Cursor line, because now we've finally started attacking. My opponent needs another Fire Energy to be able to attach this and retreat, or a switch. And this is where we will start utilising our Pokédolls. So we can give up one of our triple acceleration energies, which is what we're going to do. Now our deck's starting to get so thin, potentially doesn't matter anymore. And we will get yet another Squobit, because right now, if he bossed this in after my attack, that would be very detrimental to my game plan. So Erica's for a lot. And we will Smack and Run and go into a Squobit this time, because we do have one spare on the bench anyway. We do not want to be going into Galarian Cursor yet, because we don't want Galarian Cursor to knock this out. We want it to knock out a fresh one. So my opponent does appear to be gearing up for a Heatran play. So now is the time to use some of the Pokédolls that we have left. And we will put this here. We will drop a Lily's Pokédoll. We will make do a Professor's Research, as there's no cards left in my deck that I feel like we want to discard. We will Marnie my opponent here. Because the single boss's orders does win my opponent the game, so we will Smack and Run this. Knock it out, promote the Pokédoll, and take our prize. And the reason why we Marnied last turn is so we do have draw supporters in deck, and there's the boss orders. So that's well played to my opponent. Again, extremely good player, and if you've never seen any of Enjoy Friends videos, I do recommend you go over to his channel, Tricky Jim. A lot of competitive content on there, and he also does a lot of content for his fans as well, like meme decks and stuff like that. So very good battle, very difficult, a very unfortunate slow start by yours, and we'll be back for the next game. So the last game did show that, to some extent, even against one of the best, definitely in the top 5 decks that are running around at the moment, that Greedent can come close to taking on these decks. To be honest, it does do a very good job of it. Although, if we are against ATP here, which it very much could be due to the Drudkin deck sleeves, although seeing that amount of bench Pokemon is unusual, we are against, what is it? Oh, Reshiram and Zekrom. So we are here just going to Pokemon this in and go straight for Arzation, because if it's even in deck, because we do need to start finding our Squovits and setting up while still having the ability to draw cards. And there's a Squovit straight off the bat. So, in terms of meta is usually dictated by tiers. I would say that Reshiram and Zekrom is maybe a 1.5 to 2. Due to the meta at the moment, its attacks do have a lot of competitive viability, especially its GX attack, which allows my opponent to hit 170 onto 2 of my bench Pokemon. So when my opponent comes close to gearing up for that, we do need to find our Mew. So we'll see exactly what my opponent does here. I'm hoping that we don't see a welder for 2 and just the 1, because it'll make it that much harder for my opponent to be able to get off the very fast Fable Flare, not Fable Flare, but it's the cross break. Does seem like my opponent's having quite the slow start, so that's lucky for us. We see a welder for 1 energy, which is exactly what I was hoping. Now, I'm not sure if these decks play energy switch or not. That is my only cause for concern right now. But my opponent can easily take a knockout on my active with simply a Fabled Flare Bolts, getting rid of just the 1 energy. We'll probably see a scoop up of the active Jirachi here, or a switch. Just the switch. So I prefer to see the switch in this instance, because I wouldn't want my opponent to have too little of a bench, since some of our draw supporters are Erica's Hospitality. So we see another scoop up net, but at this point, if you scoop up nets and goes into the bench Jirachi, you will not be able to use its ability, as it has already used its ability once whilst it's been on the board. He does go for the scoop up net anyway, so his last card in hand will either be an energy. No, he's just going to go into the Jirachi for whatever reason. And he puts the other Jirachi back down. This is the last card in hand, a scoop up net or a switch. It's nice to see that my opponents do have sometimes a slower start as me. So we finally get our Squovits in play, which is exactly what we needed. And I very, very doubt that these decks do play Marnie, so we are going to Erica's Hospitality. And we do have a place for the Mew, but we do not want to do it yet. We will evolve the active, because that would make it so much harder for my opponent to want to be able to attack. and we will simply Intrepid Sword. So we finally find our Minccino line, which is good for us. I don't know if these Reshiram and Zekrom decks do play a reset stamp, but he may be stuck again this turn, which would very much help us. And we see my opponent discard an energy, so we can maximise the Tapu Koko play here. And now is the time that we want to find our Mew, which is what we're going to find right now. I am unfortunately going to have to forego the Minccino this game. But it's very unlikely we'll see a Fabled Fireball to my opponent this turn, because I'm sure he's looking for boss orders to be able to get around these things. And for whatever reason, he attached here, which is, in my opinion, quite the waste. Don't know what he could be grabbing with this, a Welder, so at least he can Welder for one next turn. So we'll, don't want to put Square down, we want this down. We want to common the Minccino for Mew. And we know my opponent has a Welder in hand, so it's very unlikely that he's going to be using a boss sword this turn, unless that's exactly what he has in hand right now. So we will get in our first knockout with Smack and Run. And go straight into the Galarian Cursor. I will potentially lose my only copy of Air Balloon here. And we need to see if that Galarian Cursor's ability will allow us to take a knockout. So it seems like he's going for a Dedenne, which we see here. My opponent desperately looking for boss's orders, I would imagine. The question is, does he find it? And even if he does, we do have a Ordinary Rod to put the Mew back into the deck. So we see an End's Resolve, which is good for us. That's not a boss's orders. And he discarded more Quick Balls and another End's Resolve, two End's Resolves. So thankfully, because he isn't playing Vitality Band, he is forced to use 2 energy for this. And we do get a clean knockout as well, so very good work from our Galarian Corsola there. And we find the Galarian Corsola off the prizes as well, which is insane. These have a retreat cost of 3, so I think this turn I'm going to put the Galarian Corsola down, another Square bit, and Boss's Orders in this thing. I want to be as aggressive as possible on the Pokemon that he is most likely to attack with. And he brings it in anyway, which is good for me. So we'll put down 2 Square bits, and we just see a victory. So this is why I say about the Galarian Corsola being such a strong card, that if it knocks out a fresh 3-prize attacker, you get so much card advantage out of it and so much worth for as little time as it takes to settle. So that shows the raw power of our Galarian Corsola and the Greedent that allows you to go into the Galarian Corsola to hopefully force your opponent to activate its ability. So I'll be right back with the deck list again. So I'm back with the deck list here of our budget Greedent deck, and I've had so much fun playing this deck, and I hope you all had fun watching. If you did have fun watching and you liked the video, please drop a like down below. It would help out the channel very much. If I didn't mention in the first game, please head over to Tricky Jim's channel at some point, because he puts out amazing content and everything he does is pretty much for his fans. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It would be an absolutely great big help. It helps out me and the channel loads. And please give this deck a try, because it is such fun watching your opponent's 3 prize card attackers going down to Cursler. So that's all for me. Hope you've enjoyed watching, and peace.